mean, the more people talk about it too, because some people feel like it's shameful to talk about, especially if you work at, a big company where everybody is burned out and has disregarded it for so many years. Then if you're like, wait, I think I'm burned out. They're like, that's cute. You've only been here for 3 years. Wait till you've been here for 20 years. Like, and they could actually
Jeez.
not care less. So I get that at some places, it's just not as acknowledged, but it is like helpful to name and to talk about and to almost frame like it's probably going to happen to everyone in their lifetime. So it's better you have information about it than that you don't.
Right. I totally agree. What is your take? So you've worked with corporations, you've worked with individuals too. Like, what's your take on burnout culture? Like, I've read some of that, as you've stated. It's like a hustle, it's like a productivity thing. I know I feel these things, but what's your assessment from your research and from your work and your experiences of what the heck is going on in our corporate culture that's driving people to burnout?
Yeah. So, there, in some cases, it's on the business's side, and the business is just they expect more than somebody can do comfortably, and sometimes they take an interest in that and they're willing to work around that, and other times the bottom line is more important. And even if you have to overfunction to do it, even if you don't necessarily have all the resources to do it, you weren't trained properly to do it, you don't have the proper leadership to do it, they still expect the final result. And the employee experience is just so objectively unpleasant that of course you're going to experience burnout eventually. Some companies are really great, and they kind of I tried to make a TikTok about this a while ago, like put like the bumper like guardrails up, like if you were bowling and the gutters are the completely burning out. Like companies will take this step to try to manage the employee experience and really enforce like do not work more than these hours. Here are
Mhm.
resources if you need them. They train their leadership and managers so that they are really strong leaders, and also so that they can spot burnout, so that they can coach people through it, and so that they model work-life balance and
Yes.
demonstrate it. Because you can't be a manager that's a workaholic and say you can leave at 5. I'm going to stay till 7, and I'm going to email you until I go to sleep at night. And you don't have to email back. Like they usually
Schedule
are
send
nice,
is a
but
is a tool at your disposal too. For
yeah,
all the leaders out there, there's an occasional time I will accidentally forget to schedule send, but if it's after hours, I try to consciously schedule send for the next day,
yeah,
just because I know when I get those messages, they stress me out. And so
yeah.
I know I'm doing that to someone who's more junior, sometimes often younger, more
Mhm.
impressionable, probably a little more anxious about, I'm 38, I've been laid off 3 times in my career already. And
Yeah.
it's like, it kind of creates this anxiety of job
Mhm.
security that I think younger people are living with, on top of, the pressures of having these high quality and important jobs. But
Yeah.
I talk frequently on my LinkedIn. Actually, it's where I write a lot about burnout and mental health in the workplace, and how to be a good supportive leader, and how empathy is the number one leadership skill that you need to develop, and all of these things. And I think that what I've noticed, and I've worked at big companies, I've worked at startups, I've consulted across the board, and medium sized companies too. What I've noticed is it a lot of companies say it, they don't live it.
Mhm.
And that's not just with burnout, or that's like with the mental health support and making sure that people are um, well, right? And there's definitely a line where an employer doesn't, need to cross. But I feel like a lot of it's rhetoric, and a
Mhm.
lot of it is um, great when things are good, but when things are bad and someone needs it the most, or people need it the most, or there's layoffs or whatever that is, it's like the first thing to go out the window.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody is supposed to be replaceable in a company. Like that would just means that you've designed your organization well enough that, and every role is documented well enough that somebody could be plucked out and somebody else could be popped in, like assuming you're kind of like cogs in a machine, and it should kind of feel that cut and dry. And in other ways, like there are really high functioning teams where it doesn't feel that mechanical, and everybody brings themselves to work. It's not just like they bring like the employee piece of themselves to work. Like they get to be really creative. There's a lot of psychological safety. So you can bring ideas and you can be yourself, and there's camaraderie. And some companies can do that. But companies that are really big, that there's not psychological safety, you can't try to adopt that smaller companies culture into theirs, then it just becomes toxic. Because it's like, what do you mean you don't care, as if we're a family? When it's like, you're a giant corporation. Of course they don't feel that level of safety with you that they would if they were on this 7-person team. It's just it's everybody like aspires to a certain company culture, but they don't always actually walk
Can't
the walk.
deliver it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that you said that. I think it's also important that these companies or leaders or teams or whatever that do create kind of these like psychologically safe things, a lot of that is the soft skills that create that outside of what you're saying in rhetoric or what you're saying on a training or what you're saying, with this new support software solution, BetterHelp or whatever that we've got here. It's what I find is when I have like personal relationships on some level with people, and I never say family. It's like, it's not like, maybe we can be friends. You're definitely an acquaintance. You're 100% a coworker. Like,
Yeah.
but that I think is toxic in its own way. But I feel like when we have those personal relationships with people, that's when you can like really sense like a change in behavior or a change in productivity and address those things. And one of the things that I've started doing with my teams is we do a 16 personalities test. And then we all take like 5 minutes to talk about things that we liked about it or things that surprised us about it. And use that as like a talking point to figure out like how we like to work together. And I learned so much about my teams that way. And, I do learn like some people don't mind the 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night email, and they would much rather have, some other piece that would help them feel more secure. So it can be done, people, is my point. I don't need to get on a soapbox here, but we can do better as leaders. We can support people. You can give people space to have a lazy day and a less productive day. And I think we can do that as a whole.